Okay, let's talk about the Suns. I think they could use a trade real quick. Like everybody else, I think Robert Sarver deserved a much harsher punishment from the NBA. As for the basketball, it's not going to be Kevin Durant. He's going to be on the Nets. But when you look at the rest of this, I mean, they've got expiring money with Dario Saric and Jay Crowder. Two good players, no doubt. Through some Googling, it seems Landry Shamet has been in discussions as well. They've got all of their future draft picks, which is the biggest thing in any sort of trade for them. And so then we think, what does this team need? Well, the first thing I think they need is at least a conversation about the wear and tear on Chris Paul throughout the regular season, if they can increase the responsibilities of everybody else on offense. And then we'll start doing the trade stuff. Now, last year he played 65 games. He had a hand injury, which left him out towards the tail end of the season. Is it better to not play at all and then ramp up right before the playoffs begin, or is it better to play regularly but play less minutes? I don't know. I'm not an expert here. Mark Spears reported that he had a quad injury during the Dallas series. Of course, we remember the hamstring injury in the Warriors series a while back now when he was on the Rockets. You've got to do everything possible to prevent that from happening. I mean, of course, Booker can handle more responsibilities on offense. I would imagine DeAndre Ayton can as well. And that's a conversation we've had since they got Chris Paul. You know, what is the proper amount of post-ups for Ayton and all that? And some of that can be, of course, your classic, just we're going to bring it up, the play is for Ayton in the post, and that's it. But more so, I think it's just the constant emphasis on finding him when he's diving, when he's got a seal underneath the basket. Or just telling him, hey, look, if you just run really hard at the beginning of a possession and you get good position in front of the rim, we're going to just throw it to you immediately, you know? I mean, last season, Ayton, he averaged 12 shot attempts per game. Mikal Bridges averaged basically 11 shot attempts a game. Mikal Bridges is very good. He's grown into a very efficient 14 points a game scorer. With that being said, I don't think Ayton should be shooting only 1.5 more times a game than Bridges. Of course, Ayton's not perfect. You know, sometimes he goes to those fadeaways a little more than you'd really love him to. And then once again, you know, I remember talking about this like before this previous season, like how much are Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson going to be asked to do as ball handlers? So anyway, then we look at the rest of this. Well, one idea that's been talked about is, can you get somebody else who can initiate some offense themselves? I mean, for what it's worth, Cam Payne's still on the roster. But let's say if you wanted it not out of a guard for the sake of getting a guy who can maybe also be like a defender and a catch and shoot guy to play off of CP and Book with Bridges, right? Well, I don't think there's the perfect like two-way wing who can create and all that out there for you right now, but there's definitely good players. I mean, there is Bogdanovic on the Jazz. I'm going to assume Danny Ainge wants picks for the guy. Suns have picks, no doubt. Bogdanovic is more than just a catch and shoot dude. I mean, he can take it off the dribble. You're not going to run pick and rolls with him all day, but if Chris Paul kicks it to him and he's got an angle on somebody, he can pump fake and then drive past the closeout, and then he can finish. I mean, he can also finish through contact. He's a big dude. In this scenario, most likely Jay Crowder, as well as a smaller contract, is moving. Whether it's Torrey Craig or they've got a bunch of contracts at about $1.8 million. Because you have to get to about $15 million to trade for Bogdanovic's 19. And again, this is just me assuming the Jazz want picks and nothing more. That would be a pretty big offensive jump for Phoenix. Defensively, you know, Crowder, Bogdanovic, like, yeah, Crowder's probably a little better on defense. I mean, these are the conversations you got to have if you're the Suns. But also for Bogdanovic or potentially somebody else, like, how old of a guy do you want to trade for? You know, he's decently over 30 now and he's on a one-year deal. As for Jordan Clarkson, I think that fit is a little less seamless than Bogdanovic would be on the Suns. Doesn't mean it can't work. Clarkson's talented. It's just between his position and his shot selection, fitting him next to CP and Book, it's tough. I mean, if you want another creator to take pressure off of CP if he's getting worn down in the playoffs, then in theory, a guy like Clarkson would do it. But then when I'm actually thinking about it, I'm like, okay, how many pull-up threes is he going to take while Devin Booker's staring at him? Like, it's a little scary to me. I could drop my annual Harrison Barnes suggestion. The difference here is I think the Jazz guys most likely will be moved before the season. I don't think Harrison Barnes will. I'm going to steal one from Zach Lowe. On his podcast, he mentioned John Collins, and that was specifically under the idea of Atlanta has a disappointing season, and we've already heard all the John Collins trade rumors that ended up not happening. You know, that would have to be a lot of picks going from Phoenix to the Hawks, and my gut feeling is that does not happen. But the idea of someone who can give them more screen setting on the ball besides just Ayton, and I guess Saric. You know, Saric gives them some pick and pop juice. He can make a pass if you trap CP or Booker. Well, the thing is that the amount of guys who do that at the power forward position is not many, And when you think about those who could actually be available, the number goes down even more. There are some names. I mean, there's Brandon Clark on the Grizzlies. I don't think they're going to trade him. There's Larry Nance Jr. on the Pelicans. There's Jared Vanderbilt on the Jazz. And, I mean, these guys would not take as much to trade for, of course, right? And I acknowledge that those guys do not give you the shooting as someone like Bogdanovic would. So we'll see what they do. The West is going to be loaded, man.